and you mentioned a couple of your previous gigs, Spartacus, Arrow, now this. Do you just actively seek out roles where you get to wear a ton of leather? Is there something you want to tell us?
Let me tell you about the audition for this, right? I got a phone call and they said, you've got to go and screen test tomorrow. And so I had 24 hours to sort of read this idea and go in, and it was a wizard, right? So I woke up in the morning in Los Angeles, and I went, what am I going to dress as a wizard? And I found I had this big jacket with a hood on it, but it didn't look good when it was undone, so I buckled it up and I put a safety pin in it, and I went down to this casting agency. By the time I did, the sun had come out, and I was roasting in this roasting. And I got up into the room and I was overheating. And he was sitting down, and there was this girl sitting sort of cross-legged, and they were both staring at me, and I'm going, try it like this, try it like that, and whatnot. And I was really trying to pull my heart out and do all this sort of stuff. And I said, I got to take this jacket off. And so I did the reading, and then I walked out and I rang my agent and I said, forget about it. That one died, but I just think I was overheated.
Honestly,
and then I got a phone call the next day. I arrived in New York, and as I landed, I got the message, and I was compelled by one thing that was really extraordinary about my first audition. This was my first audition in Hollywood ever, really, and it was shooting back in New Zealand, where I'm from. And it took me home. But taking you home takes you to a place where you connect, where like when I did Spartacus there, I'm a Maori, so I used my ancestry and my Maori warrior spirit to inhabit that space of Crixus. And going back home, it put me back on my earth. And we all did hongies, and we all did a lot of traditional stuff back in New Zealand. And we, it helped bring all
hongies are completely legal, by the way.
Hongies are touching in the noses. I'll explain it. You touch, look, Terry, come on, Terry. Let's show you what a hongie is. Come on, Terry. This is the New Zealand tradition.
Oh no.
You have to do it to the person sitting next to you. I'd like to share a bit of my culture, okay? It's called the hongi. It's a little bit like when Eskimos touch their nose. When Eskimos touch their nose, you have to do it to the person next to you. You touch noses, and then you breathe in through your nose, and it's called a hongi. It's called the sharing the breath of life. So when you touch noses,
I just want to point out that when I met him, he was in costume, and I haven't seen him like this before. So I actually thought that he had ritual scarring all over him as part of who he was. That when he realized it was makeup. Okay. See, he's not a bad looking guy.
No idea how to follow that.
You won't see that on every panel.
Maybe somebody needs to grab the mic, yeah.
hopefully this show will share the breath of life with you as well.
I want to mention the training. You guys went through some serious, like 3 weeks of training. Like, not just, accents and whatever. You were doing, like, horseback riding and sword training, right? How did that go?
It was a dream come true.
It sounds like a lot of work.
It was fun though, it was fun work. It was intense, but it was really fun. We had a personal trainer, and we did that every day, and we had horse riding every day, and we had sword fighting every day.
Bobby got bucked off the horse.
Oh.
Yeah, who got the worst injury? Who took the worst injury during training?
Oh, Poppy got the worst injury. She got a stick in her eye. In the middle of the take.
Yeah, I kind of kebabbed my eyeball.
And we're doing a scene, and I look into her eye. We just had to do this when we were running down a little hill. And it was an intense scene, and I look into her eyes, and her eyeball is bleeding. And I thought, wow, she's so intense. She's such a good actress, she can make her eyeballs bleed.
I'm still working on that.
Those English actors.
Something I wanted to ask is, so they don't really look like elves. Is everyone in this world hot?
I would just like to say address this to a certain elf that I worked with on a different show. From dwarf to elf king. Eat your heart out, Orlando Bloom.
So aside from his pointy ears, what is the different? Like, what's his elf part? What's his most elfish quality?
Well, since he's half elf, his ears were slightly shorter than the others. In fact, the joke was they called them short tips. So that's sort of the thing. So his elf ears are short. And again, one of the great things about being in New Zealand is they truly know elf ears and like what works and what doesn't work. And we tried a bunch of different elf ears. You don't realize how much of your own ear makes for good elf ears. The first one I think we put him on was Poppy. She was sitting in the chair and we were all looking at him, and she had one ear that was a little Finding Nemo, not gonna lie.
Apparently everyone has a Finding
so
Nemo.
everybody's staring at her.
It's
Why isn't this
just slightly further out.
Yes.
It's not a big deal. Coming on really badly.
So there was a lot of sort of molding and adjusting with the elf ears, but so in the world obviously there are elves, there are half elves, humans, there are trolls, and there are gnomes and dwarves. You don't see the dwarves.
So it's just like the internet.
It's just like the internet. There you go.
So Ivana, your character, and this is my favorite thing, is in some of the publicity, it was your character is described as from the wrong side of the tracks, which kills me because apparently thousands of years in the future, we still have tracks. And they're still judging people on where they grew up. But
that's one of the big themes of the show, I think, also prejudice, and I talk about it, and about, sort of meeting new characters like Emily and Will and not seeing past their shields, and just judging them, because there's this big conflict just even between elves and humans, and this whole conflict of racism, and I think one of the main themes and one of the main stories is to sort of get past all of this prejudice.
And Poppy, your character is the first female to join the show.
Yes. Yes.
So how does she fit in the dynamic?
In the dynamic of the three? Well, she's sort of, first there's a lot of animosity between Eritrea and Amelie, because there's sort of, they both fall into the same guys, which means that that's enough reason to fight. But I think there's a lot of sort of jostling for position and a lot of jostling for status, and so there's a really interesting dynamic between the three of us.
And what was it like when the cast walked onto these incredible sets? I know and John are kind of used to that, I guess. You guys, if you did an indie film, it would be like crippling. But you guys, when you walk in, it's just like New Zealand dressed up.
I mean, one of the things that I always say is that we didn't really have a lot of time to visit around because we were always working, but just the simple fact of shooting in those amazing locations was already a big enough chance to sort of see all of those places. We shot in deserts, in mountains, by the sea and the beach. And so we got to catch a glimpse through that. And they're all absolutely amazing and breathtaking.
So for you guys, for all of you, how intense or intimidating is it being part of something that is going to be presented to such a rabid fan base?
Well, luckily we have the grand Uber of Shannara right with us, and we've always wanted Terry, and we've always been very respectful of the property, but also Terry's blessing expanded it in terms of what it is, and maybe I think something that is contemporary but is also very true to itself. And I think it's daunting, but also we've seen the show, and I think Terry's seen the show, and I think it's going to satisfy the diehards Shannara fan, but also people who have no idea what it is. It introduces a whole generation and the world to the books and to the world of Horrorland and the characters that Terry created. And I think it's something we'll be very proud of, and that's always you make a show for yourself. And Alan and I, when we first saw the small bill, thought this is awesome. And we first saw the first cut of this. Usually the first cut is the worst thing we do to see. And I always look at it in dread, and I don't want to get up in the morning to see the first cut of the show. And we literally sat down to the first 2 hours of the show. It was incredible. So it's swanky and great for us to it was the ambition of the show. You go in and want to do something great and epic, and then to see it realized in this way is just so rewarding. And then now to be able to share it with the world, and to have someone like Terry, who's this is his life's work, to give his seal of approval, it means a lot to us, and I think it'll mean a lot to his family, and a lot to the world, actually.
What he said.
All right, any other questions?
It's the scale of it that will astonish. When a writer creates a world, a writer like Conrad, or a writer like Terry, you know, that the scale of creating a world is different from a scale of creating a nice, beautifully written book by Jane Austen or something like that. This is an entire world. And what is remarkable is that this production is faithful to that and exceeds your expectations astonishingly. This is a great show. You're going to love it.
Hi, I'm Kim. Hi, Austin. I just wanted to know if you enjoy playing this character in like this type of fantasy environment more than like your realistic characters like Sebastian or like the Bling Ring or something. I've seen you in everything.
Oh, you're so sweet. Each role has its own things that I love about it. This one, a year before I even got this, my best friend asked me, he said, what do you want to do next? And I said, you know, I want to do something where I'm riding horses and fighting with swords and stuff. And then this came up, and I thought, oh, that's kind of weird. That just and it really is, it's what I grew up pretending to be in my backyard. And then the emotional things really struck home with me, and just that feeling of growing from a boy into a man, and kind of what Miles was saying earlier, finding your place in this world, and all that just resonated so much. So it was not only so fun doing all the action and stuff, but then it really touched my heart as well.
This one's for Manu and Austin, and maybe Poppy and Ivana, if you guys want to answer. So obviously, Manu and Austin, you guys had different type of past roles. So Manu coming from a very heavy action side, and Austin coming from like a, what'd you say, Carrie Diaries. How much has your role in this awesome show that's going to be coming out, how has it impacted your life personally? Not as an actor, but as a person.
You know, like when I was mentioning before, working alongside Andy Whitfield or other actors, it's a dance. You know, it's a dance, and it's a language that you have to learn to share together as actors, whether it's whether it's with the girls or whether it's with Austin, whether it's with the directors and the producers. It's a dance. You know, hopefully it's going to be an honest dance. You know, sometimes you can go toe to toe with people on a dance floor and you don't connect. Or you do, and you go, and you just get taken away with it. So Austin's just got that kind of heart, as I said before. So for me, it's always such a pleasant part of the occupation to be alongside somebody who's open and ready to move in that emotional range that you need to move. You know, so yeah, all I can say is that it's been an education for me as well, because playing an older character, which I am in this one. You know, before I was Crixus, or Slave, something like that. But to know that he's got as true a heart as he's got, and to try to be Al-Anon guiding him through this world, it's been a pleasure, because I just watch him and I just know his instincts, as Al-Anon would know Will's instincts, and believe in them, because he's going places. I'm just shooting magic at my hands. On his behalf.
Yeah, so how has it impacted my life? I mean, it was amazing. We went away for half a year to New Zealand and didn't have our families there for the most part. I mean, you're from there, so that was extremely cool. So you were sort of a rock there that we can all come to for comfort and stuff. And just getting to go for such a long amount of time and be obsessed with one project is incredible.
Yeah, can I say one thing as well? Is that Spartacus was like a cutting-edge show, you know, for television. Television's getting a power of its own. It's skyrocketing. Every year, there's such big productions just going one step up every year. And Shannara's like it's Peter Jackson got approached. You know, all of a sudden he went, you know what? I can do it now. I can make Tolkien for film, right? Well, these guys made the same decision for television. You know, with all the same people, as I said before, that made Lord of the Rings and The Hobbit. So it's really just lifting the bar, and to be a part of a show that's pushing the envelope, that's the best thing you can be as an actor. I think the best opportunity you can get.
Hi, this is for the producers and for Terry. So Elfstones is awesome, and there's a lot of really awesome books after that. But those are starring like the descendants of the characters we're going to see in season 1. Are you envisioning long-term it being an anthology series where people play like their own descendants, or would you want to bring in more actors, kind of like, sort of like American Horror Story does? Like, how would you guys want to do it?
Well, you know what? That's an excellent question, but we're not going to reveal that yet.
You know it's a good question.
My question, actually my direction is at Mr. Brooks. The Sword of Shannara was the very first book I ever read. And I read it because my English teacher in 10th grade, she was reading it and I saw the cover and I said, oh, that looks pretty cool. Oh, and she gave it to me. And so since then I devoured it. And I devoured every single book that you made after that, or that you wrote after that. So you were kind of like my first literary study. So, part of that, so much so to the point where, even to this day, because of the Landover series, I drink Glenlivet Scotch, so thank you for that. So I just wanted to say that for authors that write fiction, I think that sometimes you think that maybe the genre is just purely entertainment. But for a 16-year-old kid that had never really read a book before that, because my parents really never, pushed reading or anything, and for that book to have made such a profound, impact on my life, don't think for a second that what you do is just entertainment. And I just wanted to thank you for that.
I would just have to say that it's those kinds of expectations that keep me honest.
Did any of the cast read Elfstones?
Good question.
Yes. Oh. I listened to the audiobooks. But that still counts. I really enjoyed them, and I did go for the unabridged rather than the abridged.
It was the first book I ever bought on my iPhone. And iPod. Yes, I guess so.
I prefer to read on paper, but I did buy it on my Kindle and on that.
I was wondering why you decided to go with Elfstones instead of Sword of Shannara first.
That's a pretty easy question, although I think if you look at the two books, you can tell what the difference is. Elfstones has a much broader scope in plotting. It has strong female characters, and I felt very strongly that the network that picked this up, or the writers that picked it up, would want to have strong female characters as a part of the story. I also thought that the love triangle, that is an unorthodox kind of love triangle, would be attractive to writers and to the network and audience as well. So all those factors for me, also, I hate to say this, but I think it's a better book. So that was the push. I really gave it a strong push when we were talking about what to do with it.
I was just wondering if it was difficult for you guys to transition the story from like a book to a television show?
Again, I think television was the right medium for this story because, as I said earlier, it's such a dense story, but so much happens, and the characters are so interesting and it's so sprawling that it actually, I think to try to have done it as a movie would have been hard. Like, you need 3 movies, you know, but when you have 10 hours of television to tell the story,
That's it. It's like, it's still, you know, it's never going to be the $500 million Lord of the Rings version. So for us, it's all about finding and really building on the characters that Terry created. Because we cannot have battles of 10,000 people. So it's how do we do this at a scale that still is true to the books, but is actually true to the characters as well. Still have an epic spectacle, but not have that level of battle, which is featured in the book. But also this book, what we fell in love with was the ending in terms of what it was. I won't spoil it for anyone who's read the book. It was so complete as a season, and it felt such an emotional journey for the characters, and that ending was just spectacular. So that's what we loved in terms of looking at it as a season of television. But it had challenges in terms of scaling down some of the action and building the characters. That was our challenge.
We have time for one more question.
I got a question for the guy at the end.
A question for you.
We don't know yet. We're going to hear it. Let's hear the question.
Yes, it's for John. Are you for sliders?
Yes, I'm just sniffing in for a moment or two in this universe, and then I'm off again. But I'm glad that those questions came from people who've been inspired by Terry's writing. You know, a child is safe the moment they can read a book and understand and enter into that world of the imagination. And any divisions between different types of literature is really all arbitrary. It is whatever it takes to get a child into reading and visiting that alternate space and time. And that's the marvel of books. And I'm so glad that we're turning these books now into something that's visual as well. Fantastic. And just one last thing. So, am I right in thinking now that if this series is a huge hit, then the credit goes to the writer and the actors, and if it isn't a huge hit, the blame goes to them.
But wait, before you go, click the video to your right to see the Vampire Diaries panel at Comic-Con, or click to the left for everything about the Shannara Chronicles panel Part 1, and then click subscribe so you don't miss a single video.